Story 1. Just assuming I always know what to do. Assumed competency. No, I don't know how to do things I've never done before. I'm only good at confidently figuring it out because I've had to do that all my life. Story 2. Body image. They claim males have no body image issues from toys, etc. Look at the toys of my generation. They all have ripped Greek god body types. I was 6 feet tall and 125 to 135 pounds until my 30s when my metabolism slowed down and my knees started failing. I couldn't gain weight or muscle mass and had numerous women taunt me over being a beanpole. They said things like I need to eat more or work out more. In high school, I wrestled and worked out 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, and had a tournament every Saturday. That is mostly why I have knee issues now, which are not really bad. I just can't work out or be on my feet for 6 hours or so without pain, ending up for days in a row. Yes, I have tried getting back into it slowly. My doctor doesn't want me doing it anymore and said it's normal at my age for this to come up for blue-collar workers. So any weights I have to be seated or on my back for, which is fine, but I can't do the farmer carries for 2 miles a day like I did with 40 pounds. Story 3. Walking alone at night and feeling safe. When it comes to rape and sexual assault, yes. I'm not worried about being a victim of those things, but I'm still scared of some mentally ill person who might also be under the influence of alcohol or drugs mugging me, physically assaulting me, or killing me. I finish my shifts at work near midnight, and I hate walking home alone. That's why I will get a car lift home if available or walk with another coworker if possible. I also can't go out to late-night bars without someone I know and trust. Story 4. Women think the average law-abiding man walks around with no fear of ever being attacked. I, too, look over my shoulder in fear of potential criminals trying to do me wrong. Well, if men just called out other men, what am I supposed to do? Yell, "Swiper, no swiping," and expect these malicious individuals with evil in their hearts to be deterred from committing crime? Story 5. All able-bodied men in my country have to serve a mandatory military service for a year, and thus we are expected to die first in a total war. I am not saying that I wish women should die as well and get drafted. I am very well willing to die for this cause, but I just hope that some people would acknowledge the cons of being a man. Story 6. The idea that only men are considered for positions of leadership in the workforce may be true in some industries. However, I work in education, and 3 out of the 4 public schools I have worked at have administrative staff or department heads who are predominantly women. Story 7. The topic of men can walk alone at night without feeling unsafe is complete and total nonsense. I don't even feel safe outside at night, whether in a crowd or alone. Even in broad daylight alone, it is less than safe nowadays. Story 8. People think that if you are a man, you are automatically taken more seriously and people will listen to you. The truth is that no one will listen to you just because you are a man. You have to prove yourself. The idea that men will listen to men is flawed. Men will listen to men who understand them, have proven their competency, and have earned their trust. In my experience, women who feel excluded often simply do not understand how male relationships work or how to earn the respect of the men around them. Sometimes they have a chip on their shoulder and think, why should I listen to men when women have been sidelined for thousands of years? Conversely, women who do understand simply become regarded as one of the boys or pick-me's by other women. Story 9. This thread seems an appropriate place for that. From an old Reddit post I saved. Story 10. Not being assaulted. Men are 90% of homicide victims, and if you include force to penetrate as a form of rape, 40% of rape victims. It's deranged to say there's an epidemic of violence against women while not acknowledging there's an epidemic against men. Story 11. I have never worked anywhere where I made more than anybody else of any race or gender at the same position. I have, however, worked for tips, and there is a giant wage gap between attractive women and everyone else. Not like 70 cents on the dollar, more like double or triple. Story 12. As a black man, nearly everything, most male privilege applies only to a small number of white men. I've had white women approach me about the wage gap as if people who look like me make more than people who look like them. Story 13. There is a boys' club in the office. It is really the opposite. Male leaders look to bring women in for diversity. All things being equal, they choose a woman, which is fine. Women leaders look to bring other women in, not necessarily with all things being equal. Story 14. Being wealthy and connected with power over people because of my gender and race. Because I look similar to the 1%, I am the 1%. Not a chief executive officer, not a senator, not a lawyer, not a rapist either, and yet the prevailing narrative is I'm at the very least like those people. Truth is, socioeconomically, Taylor Swift and Beyoncé are 10 times the white man 99% of white men will ever be. Story 15. Men are often victims of sexual assault, but people do not seem to care. Even those who advocate for awareness often overlook male victimization. Some reports suggest that male victimization rates are as high as female victimization rates, but this is not reflected in the statistics because incidents where men are forced to do something are not always classified as rape. Then there is domestic violence. Men are just as likely to be victims of domestic violence as women, yet models like the Duluth model assume males are always the aggressors. I even saw someone claim that male victims are taken more seriously now. No, not at all. Even male victims of non-sexual crimes are often disregarded. Story 16. I hate that men are ridiculed for their masculinity by the same groups that expect us to act like warriors and face dangers in their place. We get scared too, and because all men are expected to meet these insane standards to be seen as valuable by the majority of people in the West, it's always women first. We are men, and apparently we are resistant to house fires or drowning on a boat because my genitals are different. Shame on anyone who criticizes a man for acting like a man and then complains when he doesn't anymore. There is a reason the number one cause of death for men under 25 is suicide. Story 17. Women are just as bad as men. They may, in most cases, lack the physical strength of men, but the vile insults that come from their mouths are just as damaging. The attitude of I am a mother, I can do what I want with my kids without any consideration for the father, and the way some women weaponize their children as a means to control their partner or ex-partner, is abusive towards their children and their children's father. The fact that many men are victims of horrendous domestic violence goes unreported purely because men are not believed and they are shamed into not reporting it. Story 18. They get all the good jobs. Yeah, they are also the sewage workers, the builders on 70-story buildings, and they are the ones trenching my well and septic. Women want to cry about inequality, but they sure don't want to do the dirty jobs. Story 19. The wage gap. It's largely just wishful thinking to maintain the victim mentality. The actual truth for most working adults is that men, on average, seek out higher-paying jobs, have the courage to ask for raises, negotiate better contracts, and stand up for themselves. Story 20. Walk alone down the street at night. Have you ever been in a big city? In one of the areas where it's not safe to walk in the daylight? They don't care if you're a man or a woman. If they don't know you, you're getting a bullet. Story 21. Men tend to be physically stronger than women, but that is also one reason why men are seen as more of a threat and end up being treated as such, sometimes for no reason. I think it is also worth mentioning that in some cases, what is male privilege to one person is a curse to others. For example, as a black man, I have been in spaces where I was considered a threat not just because I am a man but because I am a black man. Story 22. The justice system hates men. Most Americans agree that African Americans have systemic issues and biases against them in the justice system, and it's true. They receive, on average, 10% longer sentences compared to other ethnicities for the same crimes, holding all things equal. However, nobody talks about how men receive 60% longer sentences than women for the same crime, all things equal. Also, they are way less likely to receive equal custody in divorce, and even if they do, they see their children disproportionately less or not at all. And pay child support for your children that you never see. You lose half your assets because most men still out-earn their wives. Men are disproportionately more likely to die by suicide. Factor in that most men who have been raped or abused, for example, I was abused and it's still not recognized, have to prove it while we believe all women unquestioned. Mental health for men is hell. Finally, in America, if you want to vote, men have to register for the draft. Women don't. And don't say that war is impossible because Ukraine and Israel found out that it's not. There's an increasing likelihood that one of these wars breaks into World War III. Factor in flashpoints like Iran, India, China, and Taiwan, China, and how many countries are on the brink of civil war, Russia, China, and others, and the United States could very easily be launched into a war or World War III. Still, nothing is more unequal than Ukrainian men being forced to die for their country while women and children flee. Children should flee, but women? No. Equality means equality, even when it doesn't benefit you. Story 23. Pretty much anything that is called male privilege highlights the following points. 1. We are physically stronger, and attempted sexual assault or rape is less common for us, but we are also more often victims of violent crimes due to having less intrinsic value in the eyes of society. We earn more on average, barely if at all, but also work much longer hours and in more dangerous jobs. We hold more leadership roles but face much harsher hiring discrimination. There are fundamental differences between men and women. Whenever these differences benefit us, it is called wrong and toxic and must be corrected. Where it benefits women, it should remain so. This is not a movement for equality but supremacy and should be treated as such. Story 24. The gender pay gap doesn't exist nearly how people think of it, and it actually works against graduating young men. If you tally up all earnings of men and all earnings of women, there's a 20 to 30% gap. That's what most people think of as the gender pay gap. As soon as you start to adjust for hours worked or basically anything else, that number falls apart. Once you get to the same company, same position, same hours, the pay gap falls to 1 to 3%. What lots of people miss is that when you make these averages, like counting up genders of top executives, they have often been in those positions for decades, and the world has changed quickly. One single male versus one single female graduating today with the same degree, grades, and experience, the female will be more likely to land a better job and get paid more because of companies' desire to correct decades-old imbalances. Unless that one male happens to have a senior executive parent, the gender balance decades ago not only doesn't help them, it will likely hurt them. Story 25. This might be a bit mixed, but I think that although it is true that women are socialized to do more housework, I do wish I was taught better how to take care of myself and establish those habits growing up. I see many older gentlemen who, when they are widowed, start living almost in complete dirt and clumsiness, and it is sad that they cannot take care of their belongings or cook for themselves. Story 26. There's definitely still sexism in the workplace towards women, I agree. Women will get unwanted comments on their clothes and appearance while men do not, and their opinions are still ignored despite being qualified. But at the same time, there is sexism towards men. Lots of businesses, like ice cream shops and bakeries, only consider young women, and some companies only hire women as secretaries and human resources due to stereotypes that women are better at navigating conflict and being friendly and sociable. You should hire people based on them having desired character traits regardless of gender. Story 27. The whole suck it up and deal with it attitude and expectation. Someone mentioned how men can be expected to be the martyrs in a crisis situation. Mental health is also something that we shouldn't expect to martyr because man oh big strong. Story 28. Defending senseless women who act foolishly towards other men? Even after I casually suggest multiple times that the woman is acting foolishly? No, not me. I'm out of here. Story 29. Seriously, I am not fearless in a ghetto and I grew up in one. I just stopped walking around like a king, and I also stopped walking around like a scared mouse. Just because I appear confident and such at 200 pounds and 6 feet tall doesn't mean I am not apprehensive inside and keeping an eye on my surroundings for potential attackers or threats. I took my girl to the beach. I carried. She got to focus on having fun. I was a bit scared, but I didn't show it. I kept myself relaxed and let her enjoy herself. But I definitely kept an eye out for people potentially set to harm either of us. We feel fear. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's being capable of managing it and behaving or reacting to situations while controlling it. I feel afraid. I just don't let fear control the situation. If someone breaks into my house, I'm going to shove her in the closet with a gun and a phone to call the police while I check the house. Yes, I am afraid, but I also know how to stay steady, control my emotions and panic, and not squeeze the trigger at every noise. But the idea I might die or be beaten to death or her getting hurt is definitely on the back burner of my brain, whispering scary thoughts. Story 30. I've yet to discover any male privilege. Education and work, all through childhood. Women are encouraged into various occupations, then quotas are applied in boardrooms. Why not on oil rigs, mines, construction, road maintenance, water treatment plants, etc.? All the accommodations made in predominantly male workplaces had to change their ethos, character, and cultures that had been established for ages. Try bringing in more masculine changes to accommodate men in early years teaching, caregiving, or any predominantly female workplace, and you're dismissed. Medical, how much airtime has been given to breast cancer awareness, menopause, and just about every female health issue? Men's issues? Only recently, and topics like mental health, homelessness, and other predominantly male conditions are always afterthoughts. Retirement. It's widely known that men live shorter lives, work harder, longer, and in more difficult jobs. They should be allowed to retire sooner so they can benefit from society as much as everyone else.